Welcome to 52 Drinks, 52 Weeks.
Today is the turn of a drink whose history rivals that of wines and beers.
One drink that almost every civilization managed to develop independent of each other.
And having just one of it in its natural avatar can keep the doctors away. So imagine it's fermented appeal.
Yes, sir, we are all about cider. There's no clear evidence where it originated from, but the ancestors of apple hailed from China and made their way to Europe via the trade routes. Even as far back as 3000 BC, the Celts in Britain were making cider, and there's evidence of apple trees growing along the Nile in the 1500 BC. And given that they were experimenting with ferments and distillates, we are sure they were having cider as well.
In fact, the wine-drinking Romans were surprised to find cider being drunk in the British Isles when they came there in circa 55 BC. And the Romans fell in love with it. They took it back to Europe and specially spread it in the Germanic and Norman tribes. And they also carried on the process from there onwards. Normans even tried distilling it, creating Calvados.
Well, between the 14th and the 19th century, there was a mini ice age in Europe. So that means grapes and grains were hard to grow. But apples thrived, and thus cider became more popular. Fast forward to the 16th century, and we have the discovery of hops and the invention of the steam engine in the 17th century, both of which made the traveling of beer very, very popular and prevalent. And the fact that beer was made from grain rather than fruit, which is easier to source locally, such as apples, beer became more powerful.
But this was just a short decline during the wars that followed. Water was never to be trusted because it was always polluted. And hence, lightly alcoholic beverages became a preferred beverage. Sure, beer was there, but it was harder to produce because it was made from grains. And fermenting a food was easier. So cider, wines, and even mead became popular for their antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic properties. And of course, they added a lot of nutritional value. Everybody drank it, including kids and children. And that is the reason why it was praised in religious texts as well.
A quick mention of the English aristocrats in the 17th century who were experimenting with apple varieties and fermentation techniques in their countryside estates. And it was them who invented secondary bottled fermentation almost 100 years before Dom Perignon, the monk, was even born. The champagne bottle, as we know it today, was originally invented by them to store and prepare cider.
A point of note here is that cider is derived from a Hebrew word called sheker or a Greek word called sekera. Don't mind my pronunciation, but it means a strong drink that even though feels light. And in spite of high alcoholic content, which is about 8 to 10%, cider is considered to be a healthier drink than beer. It doesn't give you a beer belly. It is not dangerously high in cholesterol levels. In fact, the Chinese drink it alongside their meals for its digestive properties.
Rich in anthocyanins, polyphenols, nutrients, minerals, antioxidants, and benefiting the human body in moderation. And since beverages like these are coming from fruits, cider is 100% vegan and gluten-free.
And going back to China, they produce about 55% of the world's apples. India is number 3. The Asians are falling in love with this drink all over again. And when we say again, it is because the first wave of ciders in India did not fare well at all. There was Bhai, there was Tempest, there was the United Breweries back in Himachal. But these are the brands that could not produce very tempting ciders, neither on the palate nor as a brand, and definitely not as a drink that you want to share with your family at your dinner table. But now there's another wave coming of bankable cider producers. There is Sekera, there is White Owl, and the newest one called Wildcraft in Maharashtra. And there are several others on tap at numerous microbreweries. And Dulali definitely we can say was the one who started it all.
So, well, I have a bottle of Cider just to show people what it looks like. I think it's fantastic packaging, and this will be made party to later. The mango version, however, is different. What are you having, Gagan, in your glass?
I have one. I'm not going to tell you what the name of the brand is, but yeah, it looks a little different. It is not as dark as yours, but it looks fairly light. It has a little bit of fizz, but that's gone. So cheers.
Cheers. And so very aromatic. It smells ripe, smells sweet here, smells rich and resplendent mangoes, but let's have a sip.
So I'm having a pure apple one, and it smells appley from the get-go. It has a little bit of that tartness from apple as well. It's not just pure sweet, which also sort of like, brings back that saliva and sort of like hydration back from the higher alcohol percentage. But that higher alcohol percentage doesn't feel as boastful as a strong beer. It's sort of like in balance.
Well, there is sugar here, but it's not overdone. And I think that sugar plays a good balancing act in the back. It sort of gives you some more palate feel, more structure. I could drink a pint or two of this easily, but the problem, in fact, is not the sugar. It's the 8% alcohol that I have to watch out for. Because after 2 pints, I may not have a beer belly, but I'm going to have a very woozy head.
Think about it. It comes from fruit, and there is this sweetness from the apples, which gives it a lot of body. And that's the reason why, you have to drink it rather slow as compared to beers, which are rather clean and neat, and they don't have that much body. So I think because it is bodacious, you might want to drink it any which way a little slower. So that impact of higher amount of alcohol sort of gets neutralized there.
Let's have some cider and hope that we find this on deli shelves very soon.
From my side, cheers.
Cheers.